Muso's Corner.
Hi, Hugh here from Fox Control Music, or Baby Legs some people call me, and I've come into the Muso's Corner today to talk about overdrive, distortion, fuzz, guitar pedals. What are they? What's the difference between all of them? Why would you pick a fuzz over an overdrive? When would you use a pedal in different circumstances? And which one might be the sound that you're chasing? So getting straight into it, we've got three absolutely definitive pedals here. We've got the Ibanez Tube Screamer, the TS9, the Boss DS1 distortion pedal, and the Electro Harmonix Big Muff pedal. The Ibanez Tube Screamer, you'll find on many a blues guitarist pedal board. I actually fell in love with this pedal after listening to a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan. The idea behind this pedal, it's an overdrive pedal, and it's designed to emulate the tube saturation or the sound of really cranking a valve amplifier to that point of distortion and breaking up. So it's not a heavy distortion, but it's like a classic blues or rock breakup, real crunchy, heavy attack, and yeah, a really classic tone. All the pedals that I'm about to show you today have very simple controls, and they basically revolve around the amount of distortion or drive or saturation that you're dialing in, the tone, so how bright or dull your sound is, and then finally the levels. So maybe you want to hit your distortion pedal and you get a bit louder, or the Tube Screamer, actually a really good trick is if you have the drive down and then the level up, you can use it as a boost pedal. So it's not so much that you get a little bit of extra sustain from the saturation and the distortion, but it doesn't change your tone too much. You just get a bit louder, so you can really jump out for that blistering solo. The next pedal on our menu today is the Boss DS1. This is, again, one of those first pedals that you'll probably end up buying if you decide to buy lots of guitar pedals. Sounds great on guitars, also sounds really, really good on synthesizers as well. From this pedal, you're going to get more of a contemporary distortion sound. So if you're playing punk, particularly like post Blink-182 style punk, you'll get this really, really nice modern distortion sound from this. If you run a synthesizer through it, it'll just make them really sizzle, and you'll get a really powerful lead tone or a really sparkling sort of big bright pad tone using a pedal like this. Again, simple controls on this. You've just got the tone to determine the brightness of your sound, the level, and how much distortion you want to dial in. And actually, that's the funny thing about the Boss DS1. Well, not a funny thing, but a good point about it. You can get actually a nice subtle overdrive to an absolutely filthy distortion all on this pedal. So in saying that, it's quite a versatile little box. the Electro Harmonics Big Muff. This thing is absolutely, well, it can be absolutely filthy. But often if you use it on like a lead line while you're playing guitar or synth, it adds a really, really creamy sustain to your sound. In fact, the distortion, I think, is so heavy that it can take your guitar from a guitar sound to more of an unnatural synthesizer sound. It'll distort your sound so much it'll actually take your guitar into square wave territory. Again, simple controls, volume, tone, and sustain they call this, which is basically the distortion level. Not a subtle distortion, it's not going to sound like your amp breaking up. What it's going to sound like is you absolutely maxing out your instrument or maxing out your tone's potential. It gets used contemporary by guys like Jack White. You'll hear a lot of Big Muff and a lot of fuzz. You also hear this pedal blended a lot with the octave up. Jack White, very famous for that. Hendrix, very famous for that. But you'll also hear guys like Santana using it for that really creamy, smooth, sustained sound. So on one side, you could get this really filthy stoner rock distortion, or on the other side, you could get this really beautiful creamy sustain, but it might take you away from your guitar tone and more into like a lead synthesis sort of sound. And how could we do a distortion and overdrive feature without sneaking in the metal zone? It's sort of become the meme of pedals in recent times, but it's actually a legitimate, amazing distortion overdrive pedal. You've got this parametric EQ in the middle, so you can really scoop out an interesting sound. It's got a heavy distortion, probably between the Big Muff and the DS1. But you can, again, swipe that distortion dial and get a more of an overdrive sound to an absolutely filthy sound. But definitely more tone controls on the metal zone than the other distortion pedals have shown you today. Great, so now you've heard them all. In summary, the Ibanez Tube Screamer, the TS9, great for those bluesy, vintage sounds, even more garagey sort of sounds, just a light overdrive, really emulating that tube or valve distortion. The DS1, getting into those heavier tones, more of a full-on distortion, great for guitars and synths, and great for a modern sound as well. The big muff, great for really getting the most out of your sound. The most extreme you could make your guitar tone or your synth tone, and a really great sustainer as well. So from filthy stoner rock right through to creamy sustained sounds. And the sneaky one that we got in at the end there, the Boss Metal Zone. Just a great all-round pedal. Really great EQ on this pedal for carving out your tone, for fitting it into the mix if you're playing with other guitarists as well using distorted tones. So never overlook the Metal Zone. In fact, you could have a pedal board full of these. These are obviously definitive examples of Overdrive, Distortion and Fuzz. But there's a lot of other makers, a lot of other great pedal makers who do variations on the Overdrive, Distortion and Fuzz. So make sure you jump on the Muso's Corner website, www.musoscorner.com.au, and do some research, or come into the shop and plug them in and try them out for yourself. And I hope you find the pedal that suits you. There's a sneaky rumor actually that if you run the Overdrive into the Distortion, into the Fuzz, into the Metal Zone, and have them all on at the same time, Billy Gibbons gets an extra year on his life.